You're always
Hello, my
so
name's
organized.
Lucas. I'm 24 years old and I've lived in this neighborhood for the past 7 years. I work as a freelance graphic designer. I spend most of my time on the computer building websites or logos for small businesses, and sometimes just scrolling through stuff I shouldn't waste my time on. It's a quiet life, nothing too crazy. I don't go out much, and honestly, I don't mind it. My parents and I moved into this house when I was 17. It was the summer before my senior year of high school. I remember the boxes, the new smell of the place, the awkward neighbors waving hello from across their lawns. Everyone was polite, but the kind of polite where they smile and close their door right after except her. Her name was Brenda. Miss Brenda, some of the neighbors called her. She lived alone just next door. Two-story house, perfectly trimmed, hedges and flower beds that always looked fresh, even in the off-season. When we moved in, she brought over banana bread, smiled wide, and told my mom, "If you ever need anything, sugar flour help with your boy, just knock." I remember her smile. It was warm but tired, like someone who'd smiled through too much. I didn't think much of her back then. She was just our older neighbor, maybe early 40s, I'd guess. Brown wavy hair that brushed her shoulders, always neatly dressed. She had this vibe of someone who'd been through stuff but tried to keep it together. At first, we didn't talk much. I was busy with school and then later college. But every now and then, I'd see her outside struggling with a trash can or dragging a bag of mulch across her yard. I'd help just being nice. She'd thank me and say things like, "You're a good young man, Lucas." The years kind of blur together. I went away for college but came back every break. Sometimes I'd mow her lawn when I did ours or shovel her driveway after a snowstorm. She always said thank you with this soft, almost grateful tone. I didn't think much of it. To me, she was like an aunt I barely knew, a neighbor who appreciated the help. That was all. Then after college, I moved back in with my parents for a while to save up. Freelancing wasn't bringing in steady money yet, so it made sense. And that's when I started noticing little things. Brenda would always be outside when I was. If I came back from the gym there, she was watering plants. If I took a call on the porch, she'd somehow find something to check in her garden. One day she called me over. She said her porch light wasn't working and asked if I could take a look. I said sure. It took me 5 minutes to tighten a wire. She handed me a glass of iced tea and smiled. Then she said something that stuck. "I've watched you grow up, Lucas, but now you're a man." I chuckled awkwardly, didn't know what to say. It sounded like a compliment, but it didn't feel casual. It felt like a shift. She looked me right in the eyes when she said it, and not the kind of look you give a neighbor's kid. I shrugged it off, thought maybe I was overthinking. Maybe she was just being nice. I mean, she's been through a lot, right? That's what my mom always said. She's had it rough. I started thinking about what little I knew. 3 divorces, I'd heard. One of them ended ugly, some kind of restraining order. No kids. My mom once whispered she wanted children, but it never worked out. I began noticing more how she touched my arm when I handed her something, how she'd laugh a little too long at my jokes, how she once said, "I don't need a man, but it would be nice to have someone who actually notices me." She looked straight at me when she said that. I didn't know how to handle it. I was raised to be polite, respectful, and I never wanted to make her feel rejected or embarrassed. But something inside me was starting to tense up. She wasn't just being friendly, and I wasn't sure what to do about it. After that moment on her porch where Brenda looked me in the eyes and said, "You're a man now," I tried to forget it. I told myself it was nothing, just a strange way to word a compliment. Maybe she meant it like an older sister or mentor figure would say it. That's what I kept telling myself. But after that day, it felt like a switch had flipped. Suddenly, she was everywhere. If I stepped outside to take a call, she'd be in her front yard trimming a bush that didn't need trimming. If I ran to the car in the morning, she'd be getting her mail, even though it was too early for mail. One night I came home from a friend's place a little after 10, and she was sitting alone on her porch with a candle burning beside her. "You're up late," I said with a smile. She looked up almost startled and said, "Couldn't sleep." The nights get lonelier the older you get. Then she patted the chair next to her. I laughed awkwardly, muttered something about being tired, and headed inside, but her voice followed me. "Lucas, I'm glad you're still around." I didn't answer. That week she baked cookies, chocolate chip, warm wrapped in foil with a sticky note, "For Lucas just because." My mom thought it was sweet. She smiled and said, "She's always been so thoughtful. Poor woman doesn't have anybody. It's good that you help her out." And I did help her out. I always had. It just didn't feel the same anymore. Now, every time I fixed something or brought her trash bins back from the curb, I felt this strange tension in the air. One Sunday afternoon, she asked if I could help her move a heavy box from her attic. It was hot, the kind of dry heat that makes your shirt stick to your back. I figured I'd be in and out, but once I got the box down, she asked if I wanted a cold drink. We sat in her living room. She poured iced tea and put on music, something slow and jazzy. She leaned back on the couch and sighed. "Feels good to have company," she said. "It's quiet in here always. I talk to myself more than I should." I smiled politely. "Well, at least you've got this place looking nice. It always feels cozy here." She looked at me again with that same intense gaze. "You always know what to say," I laughed. "Nah, just being honest." Then she said, "You're not like other guys your age." I froze a bit. "What do you mean?" "You listen, you care, you're present. Most men just disappear when you need them." She paused. "You're different." The room felt smaller. I took another sip of tea and checked the time on my phone. "I should probably get back," I said. "Got a few deadlines tonight." She walked me to the door, and before I stepped out, she touched my arm. Not lightly, but deliberately. Held it for a moment. "If you ever need anything, Lucas, anything, I'm just next door." I nodded, quickly muttered thanks, and left. Whoosh. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling like I was losing control of a situation I never even meant to be in. I didn't lead her on. I never flirted, never crossed any line. But somehow she was building something in her head, a version of us that didn't exist, and I didn't know how to stop it without breaking her. A few days later, I was working on the porch when I heard a knock. It was her again. This time she looked different. She had makeup on, her hair was done up, and she wore a dress I'd never seen before. "Thought I'd stop by and return the favor," she said, holding out a container of homemade lasagna. "Oh, wow, thanks," I said, taking it. She stood there for a second. "I made extra, in case you wanted to have dinner together." I hesitated. Everything in me said don't, but her face, something about it looked so hopeful, like saying no would crush her. Maybe another night," I said carefully. "I've got a Zoom call in like 15 minutes. Client from the UK." She nodded, smile fading just a little. "Of course. Work first." I watched her walk back to her house, the lasagna getting heavier in my hands. That evening I didn't eat it. I couldn't. It sat in the fridge untouched, a reminder of the emotional trap I felt myself falling into. And that's when it really hit me. This wasn't just a lonely neighbor with a soft spot for kindness. She was falling for me. And I had no idea how to tell her that I didn't feel the same without hurting her in a way that would make her pain even deeper. A week passed. I tried to keep my distance, just enough not to be rude, but not so much that it looked like I was avoiding her. I told myself maybe it would all blow over. Maybe I was reading into things too much. People get lonely. Maybe she just appreciated the company, but that hope didn't last long. One afternoon, I was walking back from the store with a bag of groceries when I saw her standing by her mailbox. She waved me over. I hesitated, then crossed the lawn. "Hey, Lucas," she said softly, her voice low, like she'd been crying or like she didn't want anyone else to hear. "Do you have a few minutes? I could really use someone to talk to." I could have made an excuse, should have, but there was something in her eyes, raw and tired, that made me feel like walking away would be the same as kicking someone when they were already down. So I nodded. We sat on her back patio. It was quiet back there. No cars, no neighbors, just wind moving through the trees. She poured 2 glasses of wine. I told her I didn't really drink, but she handed it to me anyway. Then she started talking about her life, about all of it. The first husband was charming but emotionally abusive. The second one cheated on her with a woman 10 years younger. The third one left when he found out she couldn't have children. She looked down at her hands when she said that. I was only 33 when the doctor told me. I had all these plans, the nursery, the lullabies, the birthday parties. I didn't know what to say. No one teaches you how to respond to that. I tried adoption, she went on, but they told me I was emotionally unstable. That's what the caseworker wrote down. Can you believe that? She laughed, but it wasn't a laugh. It was more like the sound you make when you've got no tears left. Ever since then, and it's just been quiet, she said. Years of quiet. You start talking to your plants. You celebrate your own birthday with wine and reruns. I swallowed hard and looked away. It hurt to hear. I know I'm not some young thing anymore, she said, turning toward me. And I know people probably think I'm pathetic, but when someone like you shows up, kind, thoughtful, decent, it's hard not to feel something. Her eyes met mine. She didn't blink. You've grown into such a good man, Lucas. You're everything those other guys weren't. I froze. There was nothing casual about the way she said that, nothing vague. I know I'm older. I know it's crazy, but I just need you to know what you mean to me. I put the glass down slowly. My heart was thudding in my chest, not because I felt the same way, because I absolutely didn't, but because I didn't know how to escape without shattering her completely. Brenda, I said quietly. She reached across and gently placed her hand over mine. I'm not asking for anything, she said. I just needed to say it, needed to feel like I wasn't invisible anymore. I looked at her hand, then I looked at her. Her face was tired, vulnerable, hopeful in the most painful way. You're not invisible, I said softly. I see you, I always have. You're kind and strong, and you've been through more than anyone should. But I paused, my throat tightened. But I don't want to mislead you. I care about you, Brenda. I do, but not like that. She didn't move her hand. She nodded, eyes fixed on mine. I figured, she whispered, but I had to try. A long silence hung in the air. Finally, she let go of my hand, stood up slowly, and said, Thank you for being honest. I got up too. I hope this doesn't make things weird, I said awkwardly. It already was, she replied with a weak smile. But don't worry, I won't make you feel uncomfortable. You've done enough. That night, I didn't sleep well. I kept replaying the whole conversation in my head. The way she looked at me, the way I felt like I had to walk a tightrope between kindness and rejection. It wasn't that she was unattractive or strange. It was that I never felt that connection, never saw her that way. And now I was caught in something that felt like a wound I didn't cause, but somehow still had to clean up. I thought that maybe things would settle after that, but they didn't. Not yet. The next couple of days, I didn't see Brenda at all. No wave from the porch, no check-ins at the mailbox, no knock on the door with a plate of cookies or a small favor, just silence. And to be honest, I was relieved. Not because I hated her or felt angry, because I finally had space to breathe. The tension that had been building over the past months had cracked open, and the truth had spilled out, and she'd taken it better than I expected. But that relief didn't last. By the end of the week, my mom mentioned something at breakfast. Brenda hasn't been out much lately, she said, sipping her coffee. I saw her blinds closed all day yesterday. You think she's okay? I shrugged, trying to sound casual. Maybe just busy. She works from home, right? My mom nodded slowly. Still, she usually says hi. Maybe I'll check in on her later. That stirred something in me. Guilt. Not because I'd done anything wrong, but because I knew the truth. I was the reason her lights were off. Her silence wasn't just quiet, it was her way of mourning something she'd probably hoped would grow. A few days later, she texted me. First time in weeks. Hey, got a cabinet door that fell off the hinge. If you're free sometime, would really appreciate your help. No pressure, no hearts, no flirty smiley faces, just plain words. I stared at the message for a while, then typed, Sure, tomorrow work. She replied a minute later. That would be great. Thank you, Lucas. I went over the next evening. Her house felt different, colder. No candle burning, no music playing, just her in sweatpants and a loose hoodie, hair tied up, no makeup. She looked like someone trying to disappear. We didn't talk much. I fixed the hinge in 5 minutes. She thanked me. There was a pause, and then she said, I'm sorry. I looked up. For what? For everything. For making you uncomfortable. For pushing too far. I know I crossed a line. I shook my head gently. You didn't push me, Brenda. You were honest. That takes guts. She gave me a half smile, the kind people give when they're holding back tears. I think I forgot how to just be someone's friend, she said. All I ever wanted was to feel wanted. You were kind. I guess I held on to that too tightly. Her voice broke a little on that last sentence. I looked down at the screwdriver in my hand, unsure of what to say. You know, she continued, when you live alone long enough, you start filling in blanks. You imagine people feel the same things you do because it makes the silence easier. She sat down at the kitchen table, exhaled deeply. I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at myself. I let my hope get louder than my reason. There was a moment of stillness, and I sat down across from her. I care about you, I said, as a person, as someone who's been part of my life since I was a teenager. But I was scared to hurt you by being honest, and I think that made things worse. She nodded slowly. Honesty always hurts less than lies, even soft ones. Then she added something that stuck with me for days. I'm not broken, Lucas. I just needed to be seen. You saw me. That's enough. After that night, we didn't really talk much. Just a polite wave every now and then, a short hello at the mailbox. That emotional door, once cracked open, was gently closed this time with mutual understanding. But the situation left a mark on me. I started thinking about how many people carry invisible stories, how easy it is to misread kindness as something more when you've spent years in emotional isolation. And more than anything, I realized that sometimes the hardest thing isn't rejecting someone's feelings. It's doing it without making them feel worthless. A few weeks passed, and one afternoon I saw her sitting in a lawn chair on her porch reading. She looked up, waved gently, and went back to her book. It wasn't the same kind of wave as before. It wasn't an invitation. It wasn't loaded with expectation. It was just a wave. And for the first time since everything began, I felt okay again. Some people drift out of your life with a bang, an argument, a betrayal, a slammed door. But with Brenda, it was different. She didn't disappear overnight. She just faded. After that conversation in her kitchen, something shifted. She stopped asking for help. She stopped trying to stretch out our talks with small excuses. And I stopped feeling that weight in my chest every time I saw her on the porch. We had finally drawn a boundary, and this time it held. I remember one particular afternoon a few weeks later. I was mowing the lawn, earbuds and shirt soaked from the heat. When I paused to empty the bag, I looked up and saw her across the fence. She was watering the flowers by her mailbox sun hat, on gloves, hose in hand. She looked up, caught my eye, and smiled. Just a small one, not a flirty smile, not a hopeful one, just polite. I nodded, smiled back, and went back to mowing. And you know what? That small, unremarkable moment felt huge because it told me something. She'd accepted it, and so had I. Brenda never brought up her feelings again, never apologized a second time. She didn't need to. Sometimes healing isn't dramatic, it's quiet. It's about recognizing the line between longing and reality and respecting that line. A few months later, I got a new gig that paid better, and I started talking to a girl I'd met through work. It was slow, nothing serious at first, but it felt natural, simple, age-appropriate, mutual. I didn't mention it to Brenda, and she didn't ask, but she must have known. People talk. It's a neighborhood. One evening I was coming home from dinner, and she was sitting out front reading again. I gave a little wave. She returned it, and she called out, "Lucas." I stopped, turned. "Yeah." She set the book down and stood up. "You look happy," she said. "I am," I answered honestly. She nodded, walked a few steps closer, still keeping distance. "I'm glad," she said. "You deserve to be." I paused, looked at her for a moment. She looked better, lighter somehow, like she was finally breathing again. "So do you, Brenda," I said. She nodded again. Then without another word, she turned and walked inside. And that was it. We didn't have a tearful goodbye. We didn't have some deep philosophical closure. What we had was mutual respect restored. What we had was silence that finally didn't hurt. Months passed. I eventually moved out of my parents' place and into an apartment closer to the city. Life moved on as it always does. But sometimes when I visit my folks and drive past Brenda's house, I glance at her porch. Most times she's not there. Sometimes she is, and we still wave, and it's just a wave, not a hidden message, not a cry for attention, not a symbol of a story that could have been. Just a wave between two people who once stood on uneven ground and figured out how to step back without pushing each other over. This is how the story ends. I didn't fall in love with my older female neighbor. I didn't save her from loneliness. And I didn't let guilt lead me into something I never wanted. Instead, I gave her honesty. She gave me grace, and we both walked away with dignity. No drama, no secret regrets. Lucas and Brenda's story offers a heartfelt lesson about the power of kindness and the courage it takes to set honest boundaries with compassion. Brenda's vulnerability, shaped by years of loneliness and loss, reveals how deeply human it is to crave connection, especially when life feels isolating. Lucas's gentle, respectful response to her feelings teaches us that true empathy doesn't require reciprocating emotions, but rather honoring someone's dignity in their moment of need. His struggle to balance politeness with clarity shows that setting boundaries, though difficult, is an act of integrity that protects both parties from deeper hurt. This story reminds us to approach others' pain with care, recognizing that our kindness can be a lifeline, but also that honesty is the kindest gift when expectations misalign. Brenda's grace in accepting Lucas's truth and their mutual respect in moving forward highlight the beauty of healing through understanding, not drama. It's a call to listen to those who feel unseen, to offer support without losing ourselves, and to embrace the quiet strength of letting go with love. What touched you most about Lucas and Brenda's journey? Have you ever navigated a moment where kindness and boundaries collided? Share your reflections in the comments. We'd love to hear your stories. If this story moved you, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell to join our community of soulful tales. Let's keep exploring life's profound lessons together.